At 10:42 p.m., my phone buzzed while I was alone in the garage fixing an old Panasonic radio I'd owned since the late 80s. 3 words lit up the screen. Dad Redfield. Then a live location pin appeared underneath it. My daughter's house. I stared at that message for maybe 2 seconds, too long. Not because I didn't understand it, because I understood it immediately. Rachel hadn't used those words since she was 12 years old. Outside, rain tapped against the garage door. The radio hummed static on my workbench. My coffee went cold beside a pile of sockets and screwdrivers. And just like that, every calm part of me disappeared. After Rachel's mother died from an aneurysm, my daughter became terrified of being alone. One night after the funeral, she asked me, "Dad, what if someday I'm scared and I don't know how to say it?" So we made a code. Red folder meant don't ask questions. Don't waste time. Just come. 23 years later, she was using it again. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. By the third call, I was already grabbing my truck keys. As I backed out of the driveway, I called Frank Delaney, retired NCS, though men like Frank never really retire from anything. She used the code, I told him. Silence. Then how bad? I don't know yet. You heading there now? Yeah. I'll meet you outside the subdivision. It was about 25 minutes to Chesapeake from my place near Norfolk. Rain streaked across the windshield while old country music played through one busted speaker. I barely heard any of it. All I could think about were the things I should take in more seriously sooner. Rachel wearing long sleeves in July. The way she apologized for everything. How Lucy went quiet whenever Ethan raised his voice too suddenly. At Thanksgiving the year before, Ethan snapped at Rachel because the turkey was dry. Not loud, worse than loud. That cold, controlled tone people use when they want everyone else to know they think you're stupid. Rachel laughed it off too fast. Her hands shook while she poured gravy. I saw it. And I did nothing. People think men like me always act. Truth is, sometimes you convince yourself keeping peace is the same thing as keeping people safe. It isn't. I reached the subdivision a little after 11. Frank was already there in his gray Tacoma, windshield wipers moving steadily. He climbed into my passenger seat wearing jeans, boots, and an old navy sweatshirt. "You armed?" he asked. "No." He nodded once. We drove the rest of the way without talking. Rachel and Ethan lived in one of those newer neighborhoods with identical beige houses and tiny decorative trees out front. Ethan liked things that looked expensive from a distance. Rachel's porch light was on. I parked across the street and shut off the engine. Then we heard shouting through the rain. Frank looked at me. "You want police now?" I stared at the house. Kitchen light on, garage half open. Lucy's pink bike tipped over near the driveway. Then Ethan's voice exploded through the front window. "You think your father's going to save you?" I was out of the truck before Frank finished breathing. Rain soaked through my jacket as we crossed the street. Halfway up the walkway, I heard something crash inside. Glass, maybe. Then Lucy crying. Not loud crying. The kind children make when they're trying not to be heard. I opened the front door without knocking. The smell hit first. Whiskey, burned food, broken glass. Rachel stood near the dining room table, clutching one arm against her ribs. Her lip was split badly enough I could see blood on her chin. Lucy was half hidden behind her legs in pink pajama pants with dolphins on them. And Ethan Parker stood by the kitchen island with a tumbler in his hand like this was all just a misunderstanding. The second he saw me, his face changed. "Tom," he said quickly. "This isn't what it looks like. Funny thing about liars. They always start there." Lucy ran to me. "Grandpa." I bent down and caught her against my chest. She was shaking hard. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said. "Go sit in the kitchen with Mr. Frank." Frank crouched beside her. "Hey, kiddo. Think you can help me find cookies?" She nodded through tears and went with him. Rachel wouldn't look at me. That hurt worse than the blood. Ethan gave a nervous little laugh. "Couples fight, right? Everybody's emotional." She threw a glass at me first. I looked around. Broken pieces on the rug. A lamp knocked sideways, dining chair tipped over. Then Rachel flinched when Ethan moved closer. That was enough. I spent 38 years around sailors, officers, men coming home from things they didn't know how to say out loud. Fear has body language. And my daughter had it. "Did Lucy hear this?" I asked him. He blinked. "What? Did my granddaughter hear you hit her mother?" The room went still. "Dad," Rachel whispered. Ethan set his glass down too hard. "I never hit her." Rachel dropped her eyes immediately. That told me everything. I'm ashamed to say some part of me had known for a while. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough. When Rachel married Ethan 8 years earlier, I liked him. Hell, I loved him. Working-class kid from outside Richmond. Smart, ambitious, eager. When Lucy was born premature, he slept in hospital chairs for days. I remember watching him hold that tiny baby at Norfolk General and thinking my daughter had picked a good man. That's how these things happen. Bad marriages usually don't start bad. They rot slowly. After Ethan got promoted at his medical equipment company, something in him shifted. More expensive suits. Country club lunches. A leased BMW he couldn't afford. Then the comments. "Rachel worries too much. You know how emotional women are." Always smiling when he said it, like cruelty with good manners somehow counted as charm. Rachel started canceling visits, calling less, looking tired all the time. One Thanksgiving, he spent half the afternoon flirting with a real estate agent, young enough to be his intern, while Rachel cleaned dishes alone in my kitchen. I almost threw him out that day. Rachel begged me not to. Please, Dad, don't make this worse. Now I stood in her dining room staring at a bruise forming under her eye. I'm taking Rachel and Lucy with me tonight, I said. Ethan's whole face hardened. You can't just walk in here and take my family. Men like him only use that phrase when control starts slipping. Rachel moved toward the hallway. Ethan grabbed her arm hard enough that she gasped. Something cold moved through me then. Not rage, worse. Clarity. I walked up until we were standing 2 feet apart and said very quietly, "Take your hands off my daughter." He let go, but he smirked while he did it. "What are you going to do, old man?" Then Rachel grabbed my wrist. Her hand was freezing. "Dad," she whispered. "Please don't leave tonight." That was the moment I understood this wasn't one bad evening. This had been happening for a very long time. The police came 12 minutes later. No sirens. Just 2 patrol cars pulling up quietly in the rain. By then Ethan had sobered up enough to become careful, and that scared me most. 1 minute he was screaming at my daughter. The next he was calm, wounded, reasonable. Just an exhausted suburban husband dealing with an overreaction. Officer Daniels sat with Rachel at the kitchen table while she held frozen peas against her cheek. "Did your husband strike you tonight?" Rachel looked at Ethan before answering. "Huge mistake. People living in fear always check the room first." "We both got upset," she whispered. I closed my eyes. Without cooperation, there wouldn't be an arrest that night. By midnight, the officers strongly encouraged separation for the evening. Rachel packed 2 bags with trembling hands. Lucy carried her stuffed dolphin backpack. Ethan followed them around the house, talking in that soft, poisonous tone. "You're seriously leaving with him?" No answer. "You're scaring Lucy more by doing this." Still no answer. Then, right near the front door, he softened his voice and said, "Ra, come on." For half a second I saw confusion cross Rachel's face. That awful backward pull victims get when the person hurting them suddenly sounds familiar again. Then Lucy grabbed her hand and whispered, "Mommy, please." That broke the spell. We left. Back at my house near the marina, Lucy fell asleep on the couch almost immediately. Frank found blankets while Rachel stood in my kitchen, staring at the coffee maker like she'd forgotten how it worked. I poured the coffee for her anyway. Around 4 in the morning, she came into the kitchen wearing an old high school sweatshirt she still kept at my house. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she asked, "Do you hate me?" That nearly broke me. "Hate you for staying?" I looked at her and, "No, I hate that you thought you had to." She started crying right there. Not dramatic crying. The exhausted kind. The kind people do when they've been holding themselves together for too long. That's when the truth finally started coming out. Ethan controlled most of their accounts. Checked her phone. Picked fights before family events so she'd seem unstable afterward. Criticized her clothes, her weight, her parenting, and when he drank it got worse. "How long?" I asked. "A while." "How long?" She stared into her coffee. "He hit me the first time after Lucy turned 2. I walked straight into the garage and punched a storage cabinet hard enough to dent the metal. A second later, Rachel appeared in the doorway. "You never hit Mom," she said softly. "No," I told her. "But apparently I missed a hell of a lot." The next day, Frank came by with sandwiches and a legal pad full of notes. He'd started checking public records, bank activity Rachel still had access to through tax paperwork and social media. He laid everything out on my dining table. Hotel charges, luxury purchases, restaurant bills Rachel knew nothing about. Then he slid over a photo of Ethan at a rooftop bar in Virginia Beach with a brunette named Vanessa Mercer. Rachel stared at it like she'd been hit. I thought I was imagining it. "That's not all," Frank said. He handed me preliminary divorce consultation records and asset division estimates. Ethan had been planning an exit while draining the family on the way out. Then Rachel said the sentence that made everything worse. "He used Lucy's college fund." I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "What do you mean, used it?" "He borrowed against it," she said. "Almost all of it." I sat down because my knees suddenly didn't feel reliable anymore. That account wasn't just money. It was years of overtime, deployment bonuses, careful savings after Diane died. I started at the week Rachel graduated high school. Every birthday, every Christmas, every promotion after retirement, I put something in there. Not because I was rich. Because I wanted one thing in this family untouched by hardship. Frank kept talking. Ethan had mixed digital signatures into legitimate tax and refinance documents. Classic overload tactic. Confuse people until they stop asking questions. He'd also been moving money through private accounts tied to work reimbursements. Rachel looked hollowed out. "You warned me once," she said. I remembered it immediately. Thanksgiving. Dishwasher running. Ethan laughing too loudly in the other room with some young woman from work. I'd told Rachel, "A man who enjoys humiliating you in public usually does worse in private." She defended him for 20 minutes that day. Now she whispered I should listened. "No," I said. "I should pushed harder." That afternoon, Frank brought in Linda Morales, a family attorney with sharp eyes and a gray streak through her hair. Turned out her father had served under me years earlier. She sat at my dining table for 2 hours reviewing texts, transfers, statements, and Ethan's draft divorce filings. Finally, she leaned back and said, "Rachel, your husband likely committed financial abuse, fraud, and possibly embezzlement." Rachel looked terrified hearing the words spoken out loud. He said none of it mattered because we were married. Linda shook her head. That's not how this works. Then Rachel asked the real question underneath all the others. What if he takes Lucy? Linda's tone softened. Family courts do not look kindly on documented abuse or financial deception, especially involving a child's education fund. Over the next week, small things started changing. Rachel opened her own checking account, changed passwords, answered calls from old friends she'd slowly disappeared from. One afternoon, I heard her laugh in the backyard while Lucy chased Bubbles through the grass. First real laugh I'd heard from my daughter in a long time. Ethan, meanwhile, became predictable in the way dangerous men always do. First apologies, then guilt, then anger. "I miss my family. Your father is poisoning you. Lucy deserves both parents." Then the one that made me grip my steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. "You think anybody else will want you now?" That same night, Linda and Frank found something bigger. Ethan had been charging personal trips, luxury purchases, and a hidden apartment through company expense accounts. Realistic greed. The kind men like him always believe they'll clean up later. Rachel sat very still and asked, "What happens now?" Linda looked right at her. "That depends on whether you're ready to stop protecting him." Rachel stared at the paperwork for a long time. Then she nodded. 3 weeks later, Ethan walked into the Norfolk Harbor Foundation banquet believing life was about to reward him. That was the tragic part. He still thought he was the smartest man in every room. The banquet was all the usual people. Donors, executives, retirees, politicians pretending to enjoy rubber chicken dinners. I kept my outfit simple. Navy blazer, gray slacks, old Rolex. Frank stayed near the back bar with club soda. Linda moved through the room like a woman playing chess 6 moves ahead. Then Ethan arrived in a tailored charcoal suit with Vanessa Mercer on his arm in a silver dress that probably cost more than my first car. A few people noticed. Most pretended not to. That's upper middle class America. Everybody sees everything. Nobody says it out loud until there's blood in the water. Ethan spotted me near the bar and came over smiling. Didn't expect military grandpa night. I sipped my iced tea. "How's Chesapeake traffic these days?" That irritated him because I wasn't playing the part he wanted. He leaned in and said, just loud enough for nearby people to hear, "Rachel's really struggling mentally right now." There it was, the setup. I looked him in the eye. "My daughter's doing better than she has in years." He walked away after that, but I noticed him check over his shoulder twice. The room started changing around him before he realized it. Phones buzzed, conversations shifted. Certain executives stopped making eye contact. Vanessa noticed too. Then her husband Daniel Mercer walked in. No yelling, no scene. He just walked straight up to her and said, "We need to talk now." Ethan stepped in. "Daniel, this isn't the place." Daniel looked at him with pure disgust. "You've spent 6 months sleeping with my wife in hotel rooms paid for by your company. I think any place works fine." Nearby conversations died instantly. Then 2 men in dark suits entered through the side doors. Company investigators. One approached Ethan. "Mr. Parker, we need a private conversation." He laughed too loudly. "About what?" "Expense irregularities." That was when Rachel entered with Linda. Simple blue dress, hair pulled back, no fear on her face anymore. The second Ethan saw that calm expression, I think he finally understood he was losing. He went straight to her. "Rachel, tell them this is ridiculous." She didn't move. "You've blown this completely out of proportion." Then he snapped louder. "Because performance men always get loud when the performance stops working. You let your father poison this marriage." Rachel looked at him for several seconds and said, very quietly, "I stayed silent for years. But I'm done protecting you." That sentence hit harder than any scream ever could. Ethan looked at me then. Not angry anymore, desperate. Like maybe one man could still save another from consequences. I said nothing. Security was already moving in. As they escorted him toward the exit, he kept looking backward like the room had betrayed him. It hadn't. His lies had just run out of places to stand. A few months later, I was barefoot in my kitchen making blueberry pancakes while Lucy explained very seriously why dolphins were smarter than sharks. According to my granddaughter, dolphins had emotional maturity. I didn't argue. Rachel walked in wearing sweatpants and one of my old Navy hoodies. There was color in her face again. She looked tired in ordinary ways now. Teacher tired, mom tired, human tired, not frightened. The legal mess took months, like these things always do. Ethan lost his job after internal audits confirmed the expense fraud. Linda handled the divorce while Rachel rebuilt her life one small decision at a time. She found part-time work at an elementary school counseling office in Virginia Beach. The first day she came home smiling about her students. I sat in my garage afterward and cried where nobody could see me. I rebuilt Lucy's education account too, not all at once, but enough that her future no longer felt stolen. One evening on the back porch, I apologized to Rachel. I should have seen it sooner. She shook her head. You saw exactly what I let you see. That hurt because it was true. Abuse turns households into performances. Rachel's role had been keeping peace. Mine had been respecting boundaries. Ethan's had been controlling the room. The only person who acted honestly the whole time was Lucy. Kids always know more than adults think they do. Ethan called one last time near the end of summer. Blocked number. His voice sounded smaller. Tom, can I talk to Rachel? No. Then he said, I loved her. I looked out at the water behind my house and told him, you probably did. You still destroyed her. Then I hung up. A few days later, Lucy and I were sitting on the dock eating melting popsicles when she asked, Grandpa, were you a hero in the Navy? I laughed. No, sweetheart. She frowned. But Mom says you saved us. The breeze moved across the water. Sailboats rocked against their ropes. I thought about all the years I spent believing strength meant staying calm no matter what. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it isn't. Finally, I told her, heroes are just people who show up when it matters. She nodded like she'd been handed something important. That night, after everybody went to bed, I sat alone on the back porch with a cup of coffee listening to crickets and distant boat engines drifting over the dark water. Life had gone quiet again. But this time, quiet felt earned. If there's anything worth taking from my story, it's this. Pay attention when the people you love begin disappearing into themselves. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask difficult questions before it's too late. And if somebody reaches for help, even quietly, show up.